Welcome to Legacy Boxing Showcase of New Mexico, sponsored by Legacy Boxing Promotions. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with my co-host, Austin Killeen. Our very special guest in studio today is Steve Garcia, who's the local boxing community president, also a trainer, trains his daughter, Jordan Garcia, and we'll go into that fight at Buffalo Thunder, which was a draw on Saturday night, here in just a few minutes. Steve, thanks so much for being on the show, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, you bet. And I'm going to ask you a lead-in question. And your daughter, Jordan Garcia, fighting at Holmes for Holmes Productions Saturday night, Buffalo Thunder, a draw against Karina Mendoza.
Correct.
And both judges could have gone either way. It's a 4-round fight. You want to tell us? Again, Jordan Garcia fought Legacy Boxing Promotions, Battle of the Brave, November 11th at the Fairgrounds Manuel Lujan building. We had the call, myself, Austin Killeen, and Daniel Pitbull Pettis, which she was the unanimous decision winner over Katie Ramirez. Tell us a little bit about this fight and how you thought it unfolded.
Well, I mean, I knew it was going to be a tough fight coming on. We're ready for the fight. Just before the fight, there was just a lot of little things that happened that went on in the back, with the commission, with some tests that had to be done that, of course, that they do. It just, her mind focus was not there, but, I give her a lot of props because she knew what to do in that ring, and she did what she had to do in that ring.
Now, let me ask you this, because you know what, Steve, let's be honest, man. We see decisions come down, a lot, and sometimes Mike Adams and I talk about it all the time. Sometimes we agree with it. Sometimes it seems, so clear-cut of who won. Now, I asked you before the show came on, your opinion of this. It's your daughter. It's your daughter. Steve, we understand. But your opinion of the decision on Saturday. What did you think?
I'm happy that we got the draw. And it was a very, very close fight. I think it was a draw. Of course we went to win, but, it didn't come out that way. But the decision, I agree with it.
Okay, now you know what, and that's, Steve, sometimes that's rare, man. So, that's rare because sometimes, it feels like, hey, I scored more points or my daughter scored more points. So that tells me a lot. I want to ask you one more question.
Yes.
And turn it over to my co-host, Austin Killeen. Anything about Jordan that we need to know coming out of that fight against Karina Mendoza? I mean, anything that we need to know?
Well, she has a fracture on her left hand. We don't know the severity yet. She has a doctor's appointment today to check and see, but there is a fracture on her left hand.
Okay, all right. And you'll have more details, I'm sure,
Yes.
later.
Yes.
Okay, and things happen. She's wrapped, the whole thing's, and sometimes you hit heads, and somebody hits a head or an arm, and things happen.
It happens, and that's just part of the game. It happens that way many times.
All right, Austin.
Well, it was a good fight Saturday night because you had a contrast in styles. Jordan likes to have nice lateral movement. She works off a fine left jab. Where her opponent was more like a bull. She just came down the train tracks and got right inside, but when she got there, she knew how to move her hands. Both girls were very strong. I've seen his daughter fight many times in the amateurs, not just the pros. And she usually overpowers her opponents. But with this girl, it was an equal match in terms of strength. And neither girl wanted to back up inside. And neither girl could break the other girl's spirit. So I thought it was a really entertaining fight. There was very little clinching, and the audience really enjoyed it. So I think his daughter has a lot of upside in her pro career.
It looks like, Steve, the way Austin, and we're going to talk about Killeen's corner more later. You write a lot of articles when fights are done, and Austin's been doing that for a while. Big fight fan here, moved from Massachusetts. We're trying to make him a certified New Mexican. You're getting there, man. You're getting there. I mean, once you're here, you get as corrupt as anybody else in the 505. And I mean that with all due respect and affection. Lived here all my life. I think you have
Yes,
too.
sir, I have.
Much love for the land of enchantment. Much
Yes.
love. So I think one of the things that Boston said here, sounds like Karina Mendoza had a lot of the same traits, and a fine written article, by the way, Austin, had the same traits as your daughter, almost fighting kind of like a mirror image of your daughter.
Yes, I was really surprised. I know that we had spoke before the fight, and I think we remember fighting this girl in the amateurs. But she was a tough girl. Tough girl. She knew what she was doing. Very strong, very strong. So she worked for this fight.
Came because I remember watching Jordan, oh my God, Garcia, that at the Battle of the Brave,
Yes.
comes forward.
Yes.
And she really, at the end of the fight against Katie Ramirez, Austin Killeen and Daniel Pitbull Pettis had said that weight advantage was going to pay dividends. It did. and the strength that your daughter has. One of the questions, I'll turn that again back over to Austin after I ask you this. Steve, you train your daughter, man. That's your daughter. I mean, you know, yeah, and it's, you know, there's of course long history of trainers, dads, and dads and sons, and daughters and dads, and how, again, that's your daughter. That's, gosh, man, I can only imagine how much you love your daughter, and don't know how much I love my son. So the emotion, sometimes you got to put that aside, Steve, and make decisions based on what's best for the fighter. And how do you do that? How do you separate that? Because again, that is your baby girl, man. When it comes down to it, that's your baby girl.
It's hard, I have a tendency of taking it home with me as a trainer, but I got to remember, home is home. She's my daughter. When the gym, it's my job to take care of her. In a fight, it's my job to take care of her like anybody else. And the emotions are high. It's hard. It's a really hard thing to do, but I just learned to just cope with it and keep under control and not show my emotions to her.
Sometimes, I coached my son in basketball for many years, and sometimes the daughter or son or the kid doesn't want to be pushed because you're the same one telling them to clean the room. Sometimes a voice has to come from somebody else.
Yes.
When that moment happens, who's that person?
Yes. Well, I have two great coaches, Rick Moya and George Villarreal. They help me out a lot. Sometimes, she doesn't have the motivation, so they see that and they'll go speak with her. And also my wife. My wife has a lot to do with it. I'm so grateful with her. With her meal plans and stuff. My wife does that a lot with her. So she has all around support.
So you got to buy in. Everybody, the whole family's got to buy in. Austin.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I'm talking about the two girls the other night, how strong they were. A lot of people don't realize strong fighters are actually very coordinated. You have to have good balance, because if I'm stronger than Steve and I start leaning on him, trying to push him around the ring, he'll just turn to the side and I'll go flying forward. Mm-hmm. So fighters who possess a lot of physical strength, they have to control it. They're not bench pressing their opponent. They're trying to dominate them. And you can literally slide a piece of paper between the two fighters because they're not literally touching. And both these girls Saturday night were very skilled at that. They were trying to get the advantage on each other, and it pretty well balanced out. So.
Yes, it sounds like a very good action-packed, again, 4-round draw at Buffalo Thunder. Steve, you've been training, I believe it says here, since the 1990s, and you had some success in the amateurs with B.J. Felger, Yvonne Chavez, and Leanne Villarreal. Okay, what started you as a boxing? What was your love for? What was your not motivation so much, but what made you want to be a trainer?
Well, I started out as a kickboxer, and then I went to boxing with Henry Anaya, and I fought for Henry for 19 years. And I ended up getting hurt, I couldn't box anymore. So I said, I can't stay away from this. I love the sport. So I started training. I started out down in the Salt Valley. I had pro girls, I had 11 pro girls. Well, most of them were girls. I had 2 guys, but most of them were girls, and started traveling with them. They did very well. We fought some big class fighters, Mia St. John. We fought Baby Doll Reed. So, and I have the love for it. I love the sport. It's been a great sport. It's a very, very good sport.
So you've been involved with boxing for what, over?
Gosh, since '79 I started boxing, and then back in '95 is when I became a trainer.
Since '79, and where was the training held at? I know Henry Anaya had his own gym for a while.
Yes.
I remember working for the city when I was the director at East San Jose Community Center. There was South San Jose,
yes,
which became Jack Candelaria.
Yes, sir.
So back then in '79, boxing being kind of Ronnie Rentz, there's names from the past. Ronnie Rentz, Mike Adams and I were just talking about Ronnie Rentz the other day on the show. People might forget about Ronnie Rentz. Ronnie Rentz, the Gold Glove champion. Ronnie Rentz was a heck of a fighter, man. So back then in '79, what was the land? What did it look like then? You're just beginning back then. What did it look like back then?
Well, boxing was huge back then. The amateurs, we had Harold Martinez, we had the Perea brothers, we had so many clubs, Mora, New Mexico, Cebolleta, we had Lee Montoya coming up as a kid, Johnny Tapia was with us,
oh, wow.
Duffy Martinez, of course, Riley, Henry Anaya Jr., of course, he was our top guy back then, There was so many amateur fights back then. Back then, you could fight on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You know, those fights just all those days, and sometimes twice a day.
Really?
Yes.
So
You can fight in the
you
morning.
can't do that now.
No, not no
By
more.
the commission won't let you do
No,
that.
no. You know, I guess
For your safety.
For the safety.
Right.
Yes, a lot of safety now with the amateurs.
Okay, so yeah, that's a long time being involved in the game, and you've seen it grow so much. What in your opinion, and I'm going to turn it back to Austin after this question here, has changed so about boxing? And Mike Adams, and I was just talking to Austin about this before we got on. The question being, because UFC and MMA have taken away some of the excitement, or maybe not excitement, but ratings, and people start saying, is boxing dead? It'll never die. You know that.
Oh, no.
But what has changed so that you've seen, and again, back then in '79, not probably people would think women fighters, no way. And now look. So
Now
what has
there's a lot
changed?
of
What is the biggest change you've seen?
Well, now we have what they call the elite class, which the kids are coming back. You know, they're 19 to 40 now without headgear, which the Olympics will be the same way. The caliber of fighters nowadays, these kids have 200, 300, 400 amateur fights. You know, they're traveling international. They're going everywhere. Matter of fact, here in Albuquerque, we're having this big tournament coming up, the Western Qualifier, which brings in 1,000 or more kids to come and fight here in our state. Which these kids want to make it to the 2020 Olympics. You know, that is just boxing is becoming very strong now, very, very strong.
And I think with the Albuquerque fighters that we're seeing, Diamond Boy, Pitbull Torres, Angel Pettis, La Bala Mendoza, Christian Cabral,
yes.
your daughter.
Yes.
So we're seeing a rise in boxing here in Albuquerque without question. And Austin, we've got a couple minutes left in the segment, about 3 minutes left. Go ahead.
Steve, when you have a new fighter in the gym, obviously some show quick learns where others are taking a longer time. But how do you spot that fighter who's slower to pick things up, but it shows you a determination? And ultimately, if you stick with him, he can become good, or her, I should say. So what do you look for early on when the first month that you have a possible fighter?
What makes a good fighter is a listener. A kid that listens to you and does what you ask of them is going to be the kid that's going to be a star someday. And that I even tell the older kids, if you listen, a good fighter is a good listener. That's the thing, if you ask them to do 100 push-ups, they do it, no question, there you go. And
I'd have to start with one.
Yeah, you start with one, exactly.
Yeah. So can you think of a particular fighter that is really doing well in the amateurs, but in the first month really didn't shine?
Well, actually, I've got my fighter, Santiago Giron. I've had him since he was 8 years old. He just turned 17 yesterday, matter of fact. Happy birthday. He started out, he was a small kid. He couldn't make weight. I remember, putting weights on him to make the weight so he can get in there. And he was an aggressive fighter, and he didn't come out to be the star he is. But now this kid, watch him in the future. He is our future to come up.
Well, the first time I saw him, I remember writing a piece about him, and I called him Willie Pep.
Yes,
He was about 13 at the, so I could see right then he had tremendous talent.
Yes.
And he could have beaten most 15-years-olds.
Oh, yes. Oh, definitely. He's ranked number 3 in the nation, just like my daughter. My daughter's a 2-time gold medalist. So, these kids have been there, and they know what they want, and they want to be there again, and they want to win that gold medal.
Now, how does this, when you work with these amateur fighters, obviously a lot of them are never going to be a pro, but how does it help them with their behavior in the street?
Because with me, first of all, is you got to be able to do your good in school. You got to have that schooling going, and if without like I tell them, there's a very handful of kids that can make it up in the pros and become world champions. Schooling is the most important thing they can do right now.
Well, I won't mention the name, but I know for a fact you took one of your fighters out of competition because of a poor report card.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
You got about 30 seconds left in this segment. And Steve, I think that's one of the most important things, what Austin just said about the lessons to be learned for later. And you know what? If you want to play, I wanted to play basketball. They didn't have a great check back then. I would have been okay anyway, but I think that's good.
Oh, it's
because
great.
It's a privilege to be here. So if you want to be here, here's what you have to do,
Yes.
and these are expectations.
Yes.
And I think it helps, like Austin said, for later. Hey, look, man, like I told you, I worked at East San Jose.
Yes, you
I
did.
know how that is, man. I know how it is. I'm still in touch with a lot of those kids that, I worked there in 92, 96, and those kids were very special. Steve Garcia, President, Local Boxing Community, we appreciate you being our guest. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
You
Thank
bet.
you.
You
Thank
bet.
you.
Hopefully have you on again.
Thank you.
We'll be back to Legacy Boxing Showcase in New Mexico after these messages.
Car Crafters, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened?
Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters, it's like it never happened.
The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide Coaches Award Program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walk up to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network. Don't sacrifice quality and flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network. Terry Cosper Insurance Agency is a proud partner with Proview Networks and a proud supporter of New Mexico High School athletics. Terry's been a local farmer's agent for over 20 years for auto, home, life, and business insurance. Just like high school sports are important, so are teen drivers. For more information, call Terry or one of his licensed staff members at 898-5556. Quotes are available for you.
Carmody Medical provides solutions for your everyday needs. Hot and cold compression wraps provide therapeutic compression for the shoulder, hip, and knee. The therapy wraps are constructed of an insulated outer fabric and a ventilated cotton pocket to protect the body. Elastic belts allow mobility and deliver a gentle, adjustable compression. The reusable therapy packs can be removed from the pouch and placed into the freezer. Contact Jim for more information.
Welcome back to Legacy Boxing Promotions of New Mexico, Showcase of New Mexico, sponsored by Legacy Boxing Promotions. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with my co-host, Austin Killeen. And Austin, in the first segment, we had Steve Garcia on, the president of the local boxing community here. And you know what? I don't know him well, but I thought he was a heck of a guest. I really did. And I think when you train your daughter or son or whoever you train, you put it's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work. You're in the gym. You know, you got to be disciplined. And he mentioned his wife with Jordan is involved with the meal plan. So it's a family affair then. And I wondered, because there was times I remember coaching my son, and there was times I couldn't get through to him because, he's not listening because I'm dad, right? He didn't separate sometimes dad and coach. But I asked him if you had another voice that he goes to, and he does. And that's good, because sometimes, let's face it, Austin, he's in the ring, and sometimes if he sees Jordan maybe getting hurt, is the inclination to throw the towel that much sooner. You have to separate that, right? So I thought Steve was a great guest.
Or the reverse, you don't throw it soon enough.
Right.
Yeah, and then your kid gets destroyed.
Right.
And
Well, there's you going back to that to that point. You know who I think of, and I think of several, but I think of Joe Frazier training Marvis Frazier against Mike Tyson, and of course he wanted the best for Marvis. Smoking Joe was one of the best champions we saw, probably a second tier champ to me, still a great one. But I remember the corner when Marvis, he probably should have called that fight a little earlier when Marvis Frazier fought Mike Tyson many, many years ago.
41 seconds of the first
41
round.
seconds. Okay, so it was called soon then.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm sorry, Austin, go ahead.
No, it's one thing you have to realize, most fighters, including world champions, are horrible trainers. Emil Griffith, the great welter middleweight champ, was one of the exceptions. But most of your great fighters can't understand what a novice fighter can't do what they're doing. So Joe Louis tried being a trainer, and he'd throw these 8-punch combinations, and the newbie fighter in the gym would be staring at him with their mouth open. Like he thought they would just absorb
Pick
what he
up
did.
the talent that
And
they had.
Great trainers start with the absolute basics. If you just teach a fighter good footwork, nothing else but good foot, his defense is immediately improved. If you teach a fighter distance, you know that you're a half a step out of my range, so that when you step in, you can hit me. And that's a very basic thing, but fighters like Joe Louis don't even think that way anymore because it's in their subconscious. So great fighters tend to be poor trainers.
Interesting, because if I'm thinking about what you said, and I've never really seen a champion, great champion. I'm thinking of Gil Clancy, Eddie Futch, Manuel Stewart. Heck, back in the day, the Kronk's gym was such a milk. Corey came out of there. There's so many. So Manuel Stewart, he had a stable full of fighters. We got about 2 minutes left in this segment, so I wanted to ask you could do for us, Austin. You were at Buffalo Thunder on Saturday. Give us a quick wrap around at Buffalo Thunder. You're in a lot of fights, and you write for Killie'sCorner.com if you want to catch the articles there. So tell us a little bit about the fight at Buffalo Thunder.
My story on Killeen's Corner will be up this afternoon. You have my column, but I haven't put the pictures onto it yet, so that's why it's held up. It was a great fight card. It might have been the best fight card that Pat Holmes has put on there. The two Perez brothers, who are really improving from Berlin, they unfortunately trained themselves, but one fought Jose Osario, the other fought Antine Martinez, and both those fights were super exciting. There was virtually no clinching. I know all the fights, the way this column is going to come out, sound identical, but it was that way. There wasn't a bum fight in the whole card, all 7 fights. And it was just Osario had come off a huge win where he upset the fighter from Argentina. And when he fought Derek Perez, it looked like it would be a step down. Well, Derek Perez didn't read the memo, because he came in and clearly won the opening round, and then for the next 5 rounds, they just had a war. Osario deserved the win, but boy, he had to work for it. Derek didn't give it to him.
We'll be back to Legacy Boxing Showcase of New Mexico, sponsored by Legacy Boxing Promotions, after these messages.
The Barley Room, a proud sponsor of Proview Networks for over 9 years, is pleased to introduce Black Iron Catering. From weddings and family reunions to birthdays and office parties, Black Iron Catering is perfect for any event. Contact Jamie at 505-459-8259 and book your event today. Black Iron Catering. Let us bring our kitchen to you.
Hey, New Mexico, come check out the newly remodeled guest rooms at the new Wyndham Albuquerque Hotel and Conference Center, featuring 309 rooms, 30,000 square feet of meeting space. New Mexico's only indoor water park featuring the Wave Runner. 2,200 square foot fitness center with hydro massage chairs. Also enjoy breakfast at our new Manzanita Grill and watch your favorite team play at Altitude Sports Bar and Grill. It's all at Wyndham Albuquerque Hotel and Conference Center.
Welcome back to Legacy Boxing Showcase of New Mexico, sponsored by Legacy Boxing Promotions. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with my co-host, Austin Killeen. And Austin, we mentioned Steve Garcia, our guest in studio. I'm going to let you finish. I apologize. Wrap up. You got a 5-minute segment here to talk about Buffalo Thunder. Actually, Pat Holmes was our guest on the mic with Mike Adams on Saturday. Pat was our guest, and hopefully we can get him in studio here. Pat's been promoting for 30-some years. And we talked about how his promotions have changed and grown over the years. Fantastic promoter. So give us I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rush you through that. Go ahead.
No.
You got some time here.
When these matchmakers put a fight together, fighter A, fighter B, they hope that it's going to work well. But sometimes styles just don't mesh. I can remember, when I was a lot younger, Oscar Bonaveda and George Chuvalo were two bulls.
The Argentinian, Bonavena, right?
Yeah, and they put them against each other, and they were both so strong they wound up locked in clinches for 10 rounds, and the fight was dull. There was
decision, draw, what was that?
Close decision, Oscar Bonaveda won. But
they both fought Ali?
Both fought Ali, but the fight just was dull. And then you'll put two boxers in there who can't punch at all, and all of a sudden you got World War III. So
interesting.
You don't always know. Fights don't always turn out the way you think they're going to. Obviously, we'd all be rich betting on fights if they did turn out the way we expect, because you just don't know what's going on in the training camp. You don't know what their mindset is when they get into the ring. There's a lot of factors that go into making a good fight. The other night, the two Perez brothers, they have records that are not that great, but their heart just makes every fight they're in terrific.
I think the other thing, too, is that you mentioned you don't know what goes on, right?
Right.
And we just talked to Steve. We got about 2 minutes left. We talked to Steve Garcia, and, things in the training room sometimes. I'm going to give you an example. When Thomas Hearns fought Marvin Hagler, Emmanuel Stewart left the training room. Someone gives Hearns a leg massage, which is the worst thing you could do. Mm-hmm. So Hearns' legs were spent by the late second round.
When you were talking about Gronk's gym, Emmanuel Stewart, and of course Angelo Dundee, they're legendary trainers, but it's a mistake. When they have 20 fighters in their gyms, they're not giving those fighters individual attention. They have other trainers. So if you're working with me for 7 weeks, and then Angelo Dundee comes in and takes me the last week of the fight, I want you in my corner, not Angelo Dundee, because I've got a bond with you. So I'm not always into this certain trainers are the best trainers. They are if they're working with you full time. But a lot of times they're only working with that fighter you see them with for only a few days. And the last week of a fight, you're really not training much at all. It's more mental than physical.
Which is part of the whole package as well. We didn't get, and we got about a minute left. I just wanted to mention this real quick. We didn't get into Steve Garcia actually training Clarissa Shields, who I believe is 22-0. I think he's worked with her too as well, right?
No, what's happened, Carissa fought against his daughter 5 or 6 times, and Jordan has beaten Carissa.
Oh, man. Anyway, we got about 30 seconds left in Austin. As we mentioned, March 17th at the Route 66 Legacy Boxing Promotions big card. As the weeks go on, it's a bi-weekly show. You and I will have more guests in studio. Again, special thanks today to Steve Garcia, the president of the Albuquerque local boxing community. For my co-host, Austin Killeen, producer Josh Brown, I'm Ed Nunez. We'll see you next time on the Legacy Boxing Showcase, sponsored by Legacy Boxing Promotions.
Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rawlins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884 1234. Garden Swords Team Sales.